Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of PowerCore Presents Marvel What If, Season 1, Episode 5, What If Steve Rogers Was the Black Knight? Now, many of you that are familiar with the original slate of Marvel What If stories, you know of the tale of Captain Carter. In that universe, Peggy Carter was the one that received the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers. But I want to take that story in a completely different direction. While Captain Carter will still be a focus in this story, our attention will still turn to Steve Rogers, who in this timeline takes a different path to power. The path of the hero, a trail blazed in blood. In this universe, what if instead of receiving the super soldier serum, gaining his power through the art of science, he went down a more mystical route? Instead of bearing the shield, he bears the sword. Follow along in today's episode. What If, Season 1, Episode 5, What If Steve Rogers Was the Black Knight? As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Steve Rogers always wanted to help, in any way that he could. When the war started, he felt like he had a duty to serve. But sadly, due to his malnourished state, his health would not allow him to fight on the front lines. But then an opportunity was given to him to undergo a process that could be dangerous, but the results, to make him into the kind of man that could help fight against those who caused evil and tyranny in the world. However, things don't always go according to plan. On the day when the experiment was set to begin, tragically, an enemy spy infiltrated the proceedings. While he was subdued, Steve was injured in the process and unable to take on the treatment. However, someone else would step up in his place. Agent Peggy Carter. Of course, as you know, the operation would be a success, and thus the moniker of Captain Carter would be born. However, Peggy saw a use for someone like Steve. Whatever he was, whatever he had, the type of ball and gumption to jump on top of what he thought was a live grenade, that was something she wanted by her side. Thus, Steve would take on the role of a spy. Within their networks overseas, due to his size and shape and gaunt, he was able to blend in. A skinny fellow such as himself, no one paid attention to him when he walked through the streets. It was easy for him to infiltrate the Axis-occupied territory. For Peggy and her soldiers, their primary objective, to bring down the science division of the Nazi Alliance. They were known as Hydra. Steve proved to be very useful. Because of his size and look, he was able to get into places that you wouldn't even think were possible. Because again, whenever soldiers, Hydra or otherwise, were talking about in the streets or making conversation, they took one look at Steve and just rolled their eyes. Just some malnourished, gaunt-looking individual who probably wouldn't survive the next day. Whenever he had to play dead, it was the easiest trick in the world. He was always able to scurry in and out of particular environments. With retail given to their side, Captain Carter would lead the charge against the Hydra forces. These combined efforts, led on the war front, would prove to be very useful in their endeavor. However, on one particular mission, everything would change. The Hydra agents had occupied most of Britain. They were attempting to access the castle of Camelot. For what reasons, Carter and her men didn't know. But once they had the info that they need, all hell would break loose. But what they were encountering, they were not your average soldiers, no. In the beginning, all seemed to be going well. They were winning the fight. But suddenly, as if possessed, the Hydra agents that had been defeated began to arise once again, their bodies beginning to morph and transform into something otherworldly, as if demons had now arisen onto the earth. Monsters in their purest of form. Carter would have to fight through a swath of them as she and her forces made their way into the castle, chasing after the general known as Heinrich Zemo. But Zemo was not alone in his endeavors, for the one granting him this power, an adversary that they were coming to learn, whose powers were not just based in fairy tale. She was said to be none other than Morgane Le Fay. Of course, when Peggy heard that name, she couldn't help but wonder if the real witch of legend actually existed in this world. And if so, why would she align herself with the forces of Hydra? Still, the clash of magic and science was on full display. Howard Stark, a leading scientist and weapons manufacturer, would have to build even more complex machinery to help fight against these monsters. Steve, the tag-along that he was, would scurry across the battlefield, even sometimes when he was told to stay back. He cared too much. He would always do his best, even saving a life or two whenever possible. As they descended into the tower, there lied a large encapsulated space, where a sword laid in stone. The Baron was attempting to gain hold of this sword, believing that it would be the key to helping him in his conquest of the world. However, the Baron had now come across the captain. Their fights were legendary, seen in newspapers and in video reels whenever taken. The cameras capturing the terroristic Zemo battling against Captain Carter. Their fights were the stuff of legend. But this time, Carter found herself outnumbered. By the time Steve had made it, she was being overrun by monsters. With her shield, made from a powerful metal known as vibranium, she bounced it across the walls, knocking them back and knocking back the Zemo. As they continued in their fight, Steve would attempt to help. If they were after the sword, if they could get their hands on it first, then they would win. But the moment he reached for the blade, Zemo, seeing this, would shoot him, shooting him in the back multiple times, causing Carter to scream out her fury as she slammed into Zemo to stop him, worrying about Steve and his sake. The monsters that were on the ground would begin to swarm after him on command. Peggy tried to reach out for him, but Zemo would cut her off as he drew his sword. She would respond with her shield, blocking his attack. I am afraid that your scrawny little rat has spun his last tale. Get off, Zemo! Steve! As she yelled out, the monsters would all be pushed back. The sword had been pulled from the stone. The furious Zemo would yell enraged as he pointed his gun at Steve once again, firing what remained, but each shot would be blocked. The young man's body had changed. He was no longer the scrawny little runt he used to be. His body had filled out quite well. A glow was felt in his eyes. A voice now in his head. A worthy soul such as yourself. Who's talking to me? I am Sir Percival of Camelot, the Black Knight in service to his lord the king. Why do you wish to use my power? Your power? Yes, the cursed ebony blade now wields in your hand. But what will you do with it? What do you desire most? I want to protect her. By any means. To protect her. Is this your only desire? Your only wish? With my sword, you can accomplish anything. All I want is to keep her safe. Please, will you give me the power that I need? I see that your life will not be an easy one. I see that in your life, you will face many hardships. I can give you the power, but it will come at a cost. When the time comes, a sacrifice must be made. You will never have the love of your life. The life that you wish to have, that is forfeit. A payment for a sacrifice as noble as yours. But if you choose to accept it, if you choose to accept the pain, then the power you gain will be tenfold. Tell me, can you do it? I can. Very well then. Go forth, my Black Knight. Without hesitating, Steve would immediately cut down every monster around him, until finally Zemo would come with his saber. But when their swords clashed, his would break away instantly. Steve would kick him back with a newly found strength, as Peggy would quickly join him. Not seeing the bullet holes that should have been in his back, she couldn't believe what was happening. The cursed ebony blade, it was real. And now it was in his possession. Steve, I can't believe you. We'll talk later. We've got to go. The building is starting to collapse. The castle, if it tears down on itself, we'll be trapped here forever. No, we won't. The two of them would quickly make their escape, leaving Zemo seemingly to his death. As they joined on the outside, the tide in battle would turn once again. Hydra's forces, even their monstrous ones, would be cut down as Captain Carter and Steve Rogers, the Black Knight, fought on the battlefield side by side. Many of the other soldiers couldn't believe it. Scrawny little Steve? Is that really him? Nah, he ain't scrawny no more. It looks like the kid from Brooklyn finally bulked up. Hey guys. Hey, what the hell happened to you down there? You finally started eating your oats? Yeah, I'll tell you later. Right now, let's clear these fields. Safe to say, the higher-ups were a little more than surprised when, returning back from the fight, they had seen a newly found soldier was in their ranks. Steve was given the code name Black Knight. Tests were run on him, of course, but things of the mystic arts are the things that can't be explained. Of course, For Steve, this didn't change how he was. He was always the same humble, meek soul that he had been. But now, partnered up with Peggy, the two of them felt invincible. And their victory proved to have great dividends for the Allied forces. Howard Stark, collecting Hydra's advanced weaponry, was able to reverse engineer the tech with something else he had been cooking up, and thus he created a powerful suit of armor. Whatever these powerful cores that were being used to power these weapons, he would use them to power the armor. The first pilot? James Buchanan Barnes, aka Bucky. He was known as the Iron Stomper, although many called him the Hydra Stomper, because Hydra soldiers often found themselves crushed under his metal boots. This trio of heroes would turn the tide of the war, and Hydra would be sent running. Of course, this did not mean that Hydra was out of options. Much to the fury of the leader of Hydra, their commander, known as the Red Skull. They still had an ace in the hole. He watched from his tower as the soldiers would head in and out, going to their various posts all across the countryside. Sitting on a couch, enjoying a glass of wine. A seductive woman, if she ever was one. Her hair as dark as the starless night sky. Her skin fair and as pure as snow. Dressed in an elegant green. You worry yourself too much, Schmidt. Have you never heard of living in the moment? Exquisite. I do not need your pandering, sorceress. When my men found you, you promised us victory. But instead, all I see is failure. We have not heard from Zemo since his failures at Camelot. And worse, the Americans gained yet another powerful costumed buffoon, the Black Knight. A hero of legend, you should know from experience. Trust me, whoever this Black Knight is, he's not the real one. What is real is that we are losing. And yet you sit by idly drinking my wine and trying my patience. You live for 1,000 years and you learn to have some. I can assure you, Schmidt, the course of victory is not one that can be held without full patience. It is a virtue after all. You should try to cultivate it. If I continue with your excuses, I will learn how to cultivate a garden using you as my manure. You must be charming to all the ladies. Tell me, do you always throw a temper tantrum when you can't get what you want? I think that you are both idiots, a third voice said, walking into the room. Zemo, LaFay would say. So, the sock puppet is alive. Hold your tongue if you want to keep it, Zemo said, as he sat down in his private chair. So, you survived the encounter with the Black Knight. Call me impressed. Not many can tell of surviving an encounter with one who wields the ebony blade. It should have been mine, but before I could get to the stone, that scrawny little American swamp rat took it. And now they are continuing to push our forces. And yet we continue to answer to a Fuhrer who is running more and more like a chicken without his head. I say you cut the dead weight, Morgan would say. It's obvious that he's only one note, and personally I don't care for the bigotry. His bigotry is only good for bringing bodies to fight on the front lines, Red Skull said. I do not care for the Fuhrer any more than you do, but he is still a cult of personality. As long as he can speak and give his speeches, then he has some use, but believe me, he will not be the one to inherit the new world. That belongs to us. I will say there is one thing that surprises me. The fact that he hasn't been corrupted by the sword. Yes, I was wondering. Throughout the text, it says that those who are bloodlusted and crave battle will fall to madness of the sword, and yet he has not. Perhaps he is more pure-hearted than most. You don't fight the way he does and have a pure heart. You never know. Tell me how I can defeat him. Well, you're in luck. There's more than one way. Of course, through conventional means, you'll never be able to stop him. Not unless you wield an ebony blade of your own. But he has the ebony blade. No, you only need the stone that the ebony blade was made from. Fortunately for you, I just happen to know where there might be some. If you could provide me some strapping, capable men, I can retrieve and make you a new sword, much to your liking. Once you have it, you can kill him. See to it, sorceress. Schmidt, Zemo said. Are we making any progress with the bomber? It will be completed soon enough. Zola is working around the clock to make sure we are on schedule. Good. The counter-strike will come soon enough. For now, relay word to the generals to fall back deeper into the homeland. Deeper? Skull would say. You do not wish for them to hold fort, and no. When the time comes, we must be able to make our move. Remember, the Trojan horse. Everyone would nod in agreement, knowing that their plans had only just begun. Meanwhile, the American and Allied forces were moving deeper into enemy territory. Soon enough, they would be on the doorsteps of Hydra. From there, victory would be imminent. The heroes were celebrating yet another victory as Peggy and Steve were enjoying a night out. It wasn't often that they got a chance to have recreation, but for tonight they would be making an exception. Peggy sporting a evening red dress with her shield on her back, and Steve a stunning black suit with his sword by his side. They walked arm in arms like they were the belle of the ball. The two of them, mighty in power and strength, but yet ones who wielded their power modestly. As a slow song began to play, the two of them would share the dance floor together. You did excellent out there, Steve. Truly, you have a lot to be proud of. They couldn't do it alone. I had a great partner looking out for me. You are my shield in every way. And you are my sword. I say we go well together. You know, I know that the raid's going to be coming soon, and Shh. You know, my father, Peggy would say, he always told me that if there was ever a case of something bad happening, the best thing to do was just not to talk about it. You know? Yeah. This song, it's really nice. It is. It's a great song to dance to hold someone close. I hope this isn't our last. My dear knight, I promise you it won't be. Eventually, they would arrive to the last base of Hydra. As the bomber was preparing to ascend, the combined forces of Captain Carter and the Black Knight, along with the aerial support of the Iron Stomper, would move to crush the last of Hydra's forces once and for all. As Steve raced on the ship, making his way to the main deck where the Red Skull was likely to be waiting, he ran so fast that he hardly noticed that the metal walls around him suddenly changed to that of trees. Before he knew it, he found himself in a dark forest, surrounded by thick smoke, fog. The tree lines made it impossible to see upwards. Surrounded in the dark, he saw the swaying hips of a woman. Morgane. Black Knight. I never thought that you and I would reconvene in this lifetime. Well, life's full of surprises. So you finally come out of hiding. You're tired of sending your monsters? I'm never tired. But I've wanted to talk to you for a long time. Your sword, it screams the blood of your enemies. I must say, the way that you kill, it's quite impressive. There's nothing impressive about killing. And yet you're able to do it without a single thought. Tell me, do you remember their faces? What's the last thing they see when your blade cuts them down? I'm only doing what I have to. That's what you tell yourself. You sound just like my brother. Your brother. You're talking about King Arthur, right? One and only. You humans, your history books. I have to say, I get the funniest of chuckles reading them. Because, well, I actually lived the history. You all just write whatever sells best. It's easy to paint me as the monster, the villain. But you don't know anything. Tell me, does Percival fancy your ear? How did she know about him? His spirit is within that blade, all those who carried that sword. I'm well aware. Merlin always had strong magic. And you fancy yourself as the next Merlin. The next Merlin, oh no. I will be far superior than that old geezer. But what I find interesting about you is that you are truly a pure soul. Or rather, a soul that's blinded to the truth. What truth? The truth that what you carry is evil. Evil within yourself. You're just trying to get me off my game. It won't work. At this point, you're better off just surrendering. This is the last Hydra stronghold. Your soldiers have been taken down. Zemo's dead. Schmidt's going to follow soon after. And then what are you going to do? You'll be the only one left standing all alone. Perhaps. But I've been alone my whole life. There's nothing new there. It doesn't have to be like this. 1,000 years. What has all of this gotten you? War after war after war. You were defeated back then and you'll be defeated now. Are you trying to appeal to my humanity? If there's any left. You truly are a naive boy. So cute. Really, it's like a puppy. I almost want to keep you around. Maybe put a collar on you. I'm not into that, ma'am. But I won't judge. And quite the charmer. No. You see, one way or another, we are all shown our true selves when the moment of judgment is upon us. No matter how hard you try to bury it, destiny will come for you all the same. And like every other human, you will show that you are not a virtuous man. You are simply flawed, broken. And when you're exposed, when you're left lying in your own despair, I will take great pleasure having your head on a platter. Immediately, Steve would see someone attacking him. It appeared to be a golem. As Steve and the golem would fight, the two of them matching each other in their fighting styles, his sword clashing with the sword of the golem. It was at that moment he realized that the fighting style of the golem he was facing was similar to someone else that he knew. It was at that moment that he stopped, putting down his sword and allowing himself to be punched in the face. The moment he was punched, he came back to reality. Standing before him was a rather exhausted Peggy. It seems you're back to your senses. Yeah, what happened? You came around the corner and you started slashing at my head. I had a half a mind to take yours. It was Morgane. She got into the sorceress. I should have known. Well, you're better now. Let's finish this. The bomber had already ascended and was making its way towards the eastern seaboard of the United States. The Red Skull was at the helm, and just as expected, the Black Knight and Captain Carter would finally catch up to him. Of course, he tried to put up a fight. The key word was tried, but eventually he would be subdued. The bomber would land on the eastern seaboard off the coast of New York, not too far from the Hudson. Military forces had already closed off the area after being radioed what was happening. The soldiers that were on board, they were taken in, along with the Red Skull. Not too far off, Bucky Barnes, along with a fleet of Iron Stomper soldiers, would come flying in. Advanced technology from Howard Stark, creating a good small fighting force. With the Red Skull captured, it seemed like the war had finally come to a close. Soldiers were being called back to head home. Of course, there was still the threat of Morgana Le Fay, but without her generous backers in the Zemo and in the Red Skull, she would be all on her own. A manhunt would be initiated all around the world for her. Whatever crevice she's hiding in, no matter how deep or dark, eventually she'll stick up her head like it's Groundhog Day. And when she does, we're gonna wrangle her in and have her face the full extent of justice. The general would salute his soldiers, as now it seemed like the fighting had now come to an end. The Red Skull being carried away, soldiers standing on either side of him, his head held down in shame, looking up to see the Statue of Liberty facing him back. Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter would be waiting right before he'd be carted off. So, you have finally gained your victory. And victory's never been sweeter, Steve said. The war is over, Schmidt. We will now accept your unconditional surrender. What's so funny? Steve would say. You, Captain. Are you familiar with farms? Peggy and Steve would look at one another curiously. What do you mean by that? Well, it's just a farmer does well to protect his chickens, does he not? The last thing that the farmer does is let the fox into the hen house. But you have opened the door. Immediately, the bomber on the waters would explode. But instead of creating a large explosion that would engulf the area, the explosion shot straight into the air as a large portal would begin to open. Flying out would be gargoyles, various monsters and creatures, as well as Hydra soldiers who would come storming in. The entire eastern seaboard of New York would now find itself under siege. Civilians would have to be evacuated as the battle was now coming to their doorstep. My God. Howard would come driving in not too far off. Stark, what's going on? Carter would say. It looks like they've opened up some sort of wormhole. A wormhole from where? It doesn't really matter at this point. Because wherever it is, they brought the fight here. The U.S. soldiers, along with anyone else who were in the fighting force, from police to even some in civilian wear, would all have to engage with what was coming to them all at once. In the midst of the chaos, the Red Skull would break free as he rallied his soldiers. I have told you that the revolution would be brought to you today. You Americans, in your ignorance, you believed yourselves safe. Well, I am here to tell you your truth. You cut the head of the Hydra, and 2 more shall grow in its place. Today will mark the day of the new regime, the new Reich. Consider this the final declaration of war. The battle had now begun. Captain Carter ran through the streets rallying her soldiers as they fought against the forces of Hydra. The Black Knight cutting down wave after wave of Hydra soldier, only to be blindsided at the last moment as a dark saber nearly took off his neck. You Surprised to see me, Captain? Zemo, but you thought that I was dead. So sorry to disappoint. Now, time to finish what we started. Zemo would engage with the Black Knight. As Carter, leading her troops, fought, she would catch sight of the sorceress herself. I've waited a long time for this. She threw her shield towards Morgana, who easily deflected it and shot it back. Peggy just barely caught it, now catching the attention of the magician. Captain Carter. A pleasure. So, you finally got tired of hiding behind Hydra, and you've decided to show yourself. I merely wish to finish what I started over 1,000 years ago. You know, Arthur was a stubborn bastard, but a powerful one. With aid from Merlin, he had even managed to banish my most powerful of pets. But I wonder how you'll fare against him. Against who? A large dragon would soon emerge from the portal, its neck almost as long as the skyscrapers of New York as it began to breathe its fire. Allow me to introduce to you the beast of legend, Fin Fang Foom. Bucky, along with his platoon of iron stompers, would fly into the air to engage with the creature, as scrambling fire jets would emerge alongside them. New York had now become a city of bedlam, chaos and anarchy. Zemo fighting against the Black Knight, the Red Skull leading his troops through the streets of Manhattan, Carter fighting against Morgana Le Fay, the dragon, the great beast Fin Fang Foom, beginning its descent. All hell was breaking loose on every side as everyone fought for their life. As Steve fought against Zemo, this battle was far different from last time. Unlike before, Zemo's sword did not break on impact. Unlike last time, their power was now even, with Zemo getting to display his full mastery of the blade, now clashing with a swordsman of legend. I have regret to inform you, O Knight. Unlike last time, when you caught me off guard, I began to question myself. I wondered if I were truly denied my destiny. But no, all you had was the advantage of a weapon. But on an even playing field, you see now that I am the master. The only thing that you're a master of is evil. Evil. I call it destiny. I come from a bloodline of warriors, of nobles, kings. The great Heinrich Zemo. My destiny is to rule this world. It is my birthright. And I will not be denied. Not by the filthy swine of America. By nothing more but a common street rat, whose only claim to fame was stealing what was mine. What's yours? The world? You think you own it, Zemo. But it's not yours to rule. Freedom is for every man, woman, and child. No one made you God. I am higher than any god. Rogers. And you have become a slave. You fight in behest of a government that will only seek to use you, your power, Do you think it's only by you alone that you claim it? The first thing you chose to do with your power, your free will, you fought in a war on their behalf. Tell me, to who do you raise your blade? Do you think your bloodshed is any different from mine? You stack bodies by the thousands, the same as me. We both have blood on our hands, Rogers. So what makes you more righteous in your crusade? You're right. I've had to cut down many with this blade. I've had to take many lives, but I don't savor it. I don't enjoy it. You have brought war to my home. I don't fight for a country. I don't fight for a government. I don't fight for a flag. I fight for the ideal. I fight for the dream. I fight for the people. For that, I will gladly raise my sword. To protect their freedom, to protect the world, I will strike down as many as necessary, including you. Zemo would clash with the Black Knight as the Red Skull led his soldiers, the Hydra agents colliding with American forces, while the large dragon towering over, destroying buildings left and right, swatting away at the legion of Iron Stompers, Bucky coordinating and trying to stun the beast to hold it down. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Morgana Le Fay was playing a game of cat and mouse with Captain Carter. Peggy knew that if she got caught by the sorceress, she would be destroyed. She would create a diversion using her shield, attempting to tackle the would-be sorceress. She might have been skilled with magic, but she had probably never taken a punch a day in her life. Peggy got in a few good hits before Morgana forced her back, pinning her to the ground with rhubarb sticking through her abdomen. Peggy yelled out in pain as she felt herself beginning to bleed out. Morgana lifting up her vibranium shield with telekinesis, spinning it around like a saw blade, preparing to bisect her. But before she could, she felt a powerful force stopping her in her tracks. Suddenly, people dressed in robes would appear. Peggy couldn't tell where they had come from, but it was obvious they were on her side. And then stepped forward a woman. She was bald, dressed in garb like that of those in Asia. You! Morgana Le Fay! I did not expect you to come all the way into my jurisdiction. Thanks for the assistance, Peggy said as she stood up. The shield came shooting towards the older woman, but she stopped it with ease, creating a portal, as multiple bindings began to form around Morgana. Ancient One, I have no quarrel with you. No, but I have a quarrel with you. You've been causing a lot of trouble for my sect, especially in Europe. I was beginning to have a half a mind to come out there myself, but then you brought this little present to my home. Fin Fang Foom. Not your brightest of ideas, but I'd expect nothing less. Who are you? Peggy would ask. I am the Sorcerer Supreme. I am here to help with your sorcery problem. Magic? There's more of it? The more you come to learn about this world, Miss Carter, you will learn that there's magic in all places. Now, we'll have to deal with that thing, and making sure that she can't cause you any more trouble. This won't hold me forever, you hag. Sooner or later, I'll break free, and when I do, I'll destroy you and In an instant, she had been transported somewhere else. Another dimension. It should hold her for a while, though she'll always be out to cause more trouble. For now, we need to take care of that thing. As Steve and Zemo fought in the middle of Times Square, now burnt, buildings falling around them, as their swords continued to collide, Zemo would get a few strikes in on Steve, but Steve would respond in kind to Zemo. Both men felt like they were on their last leg, their battle continuing throughout all of the destruction around them. A Hydra soldier would attempt to shoot at Steve. As he deflected the blast, Zemo took the opportunity, kicking him in the face before slashing him in the chest. And another slash. As Steve fell to the ground, Zemo was preparing to lob off his head when a shield would come whizzing by him, knocking him over as Peggy would come in for an attack. It was just like before, her and Steve fighting together. But because of his injuries, and because of her own, Zemo would continue to press the advantage. At the last moment, both Peggy and Steve would be able to disarm Zemo. With a final assault, they had managed to bring down the Baron. As for the Red Skull, seeing his allies being picked off, he saw it as his chance to take over the operation. He would attempt to gain hold of Fin Fang Foom, using the powerful artifact known as the Tesseract. With this power, he would subdue the beast, take over the United States, and bring an end to the war. But before he could get the chance to, the cube, the vessel that it was held in, would start to become disabled. His meltdown would draw the attention of others. As Peggy would go to deal with him, Steve would want to follow, but something was holding him back. The time has come. What? I have to help her, and no. If you wish to save the world, you must climb that building. Only you can subdue the beast. When the time comes, you must send it back to where it came, and ensure that it must never return. This is your destiny. Steve watched as Peggy ran through the crowd, leading other American soldiers behind the Red Skull, stopping his tampering of the Tesseract and bringing this conflict to an end. Steve would get a radio and communicate with Bucky. Once he had made contact, he would call for a ride, telling him that he had a way of stopping the beast once and for all. You sure about this? Yeah, I'm sure. I can take it down. I just need to get to that building. Once it's there, I'll be able to get a closer shot at it. All right. Don't do anything too reckless, Steve. Come on. You know me. Yeah, that's why I'm saying it. We're coming back from this. Yeah, we are. Once Steve was in position, the Iron Stompers would continue their diversion of Fin Fang Foom. The Ancient One would appear once more, telling Peggy what she needed to do once they had gotten hold of the Tesseract. This will be able to open the gateway. I can maintain it, but once I do, you all will have to create the force necessary to knock that beast back from which it came from. It's not from our time, a different time. A different time. The Tesseract can create gateways, Miss Carter. Gateways not just between our world, but even between time itself. It has to be knocked back into the gateway from which it came from. But who's going to have the power to do that? Through the radio, she could hear Steve's voice, as he would tell her that he had the capabilities of doing so. The power of the Ebony Blade. I believe that should be capable. But Steve, I'll come with you. I'm sure together we can... No! You need to stay down there with them. It's going to be all right, I promise. Steve, be careful. As he readied himself, he felt the energy flowing within him, the blade beginning to glow brightly white, catching the attention of the beast. With help from the Ancient One, the portal would begin to open behind Fin Fang Foom. As Steve got a running start, he would push forward, fighting through the pain, his life seemingly flashing before his eyes. As he raised his sword above his head, he lunged forward into the chest of the beast. As he slammed it in, he yelled through his radio his final orders for everyone to empty out their payloads and fire behind him. The stunned attack of the ebony blade had caught the attention of the beast as he attempted to rip Steve apart. Bucky and the others would follow behind, Peggy yelling out for Steve, knowing what this could mean. They watched as the powerful shockwave of the ebony blade helped to force Fin Fang Foom back through the wormhole of time from which he had came out of. The hole was beginning to close instantly. Bucky saw this and began to fly behind his friend. He was going to pull him out before it was too late. He stretched out his robotic arm. He just had to be closer. He could see that he could maybe grab hold of the cape and... The portal closed before he could grab him. The beast was gone. Morgana Le Fay defeated. Zemo finally brought down. The Allies had won, but at the cost of a great hero. The search operations would begin, but they knew there would be no way of finding him. For Steve, he found himself landing. He saw the ground down below and the beast falling quite first. He braced himself and took cover, everything going black. Some time would pass before he awoken, enough time passing that he had even managed to grow a beard. He found himself lying in bed, and a woman was catering to him. "I'm glad to see that you are awake. I'll alert Master Merlin at once." "Merlin? Ah! By the gods, you have arisen. It's not every day that the Dragon Slayer returns from the pits of hell." "Who?" "I am Sir Merlin, sorcerer to His Majesty the King. And you, Mr. Rogers." "How do you know my name?" "The veil allows me to see many things. I see that you come from a different time, a different place. I had to. Yes, I remember that day. We were fighting in a great war when the beast had come forth. Sir Arthur and the Black Knight were fighting against it when something, as if a hole in space itself, had pulled the beast outward. It has been almost 10 years since that day. And color me surprise when we find yet another Black Knight and the beast slain. I imagine that you have many questions for me, as I do you." "Yeah, I have a lot, but right now, I just have one. Will I ever get home?" The year was 2011. Captain Peggy Carter, now aged 89, but due to the effects of the super soldier serum in her bloodstream, She only looked like the age of 49. She still maintained a rather muscular and healthy physique, although her hair had changed to a strong and prominent gray with shades of her brown. Alongside her, the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and now its new director, Agent Fury, along with the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. weaponry experts in science, Tony Stark. His father, the former co-founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. and former weapons expert, Howard Stark. "How you feeling today, Pops?" Tony would say. "I'm doing pretty good. It's nice to be able to get with the gang once a year. How are things holding up in S.H.I.E.L.D.? "Well, safe to say that the Iron Legion program is going along nicely. We're already moving into tests for the 5th generation suits." "5th generation? I see you don't slow down at all." "How can I? We're futurists after all, Pops. Gotta keep looking forward." "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Mr. Barnes," Tony would say, shaking the hands of the old veteran. "Bucky, good to see you. I didn't think you'd get out much these days." "Well, ever since I gave up my wings, I've been enjoying retirement down in Florida. The weather's pretty nice and it's good on the bones. Though I do miss the nippy cold of the air streaking through my helmet. Yeah, I'd love to see you flying around in the new Mach 12. I mean, it's gotta be better than the rust bucket Pops used to have you flying in. Hey, I'll have you know in my day, the Mark 1 was a classic. Helped us win the war, you know. Of course, who could forget? The original captain of the Iron Stompers. Though, I like to be called a Hydra Stomper myself." It wasn't just old-time war buddies gathered together again, but there were also new faces as well, as they would commemorate the 66th anniversary of the Battle of New York, 1945. Among those in the crowd, a new team of heroes, founded by S.H.I.E.L.D. They were known as the Avengers. The Iron Man, Colonel James Rhodes. Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. Clint Barton, the Hawkeye. Bruce Banner, Professor Hulk. Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp. And the man who inherited the shield of Captain Carter, Sam Wilson, now dubbed Captain America. They had all gathered at the Smithsonian Museum in New York, where in the center of the display, there was a statue dedicated to a hero who had tragically vanished that day in battle. But through his sacrifice, they had gained victory. The statue was of the Black Knight, Steve Rogers. Peggy would give her speech, lamenting that even in victory there was loss. The loss of what could have been. But even in that loss, there was much to be gained. Hope for the future. Hope for tomorrow. And maybe even hope that one day, old hearts could learn to love again. However, as she concluded her speech, a strange phenomena would occur. The statue would begin to shake, beginning to glow as cracks formed around it. The Avengers quickly sprung into action, all of them surrounding the statue, not sure of what was going to happen next. Suddenly, the glow would fade, and what stood before them was a living person. The moment that his eyes opened, he scanned the room to see where he was. He drew his sword, and the Avengers all drawing their weapons and preparing for what was to come. Peggy immediately rushing as Fury would tell everyone to stand down. Stay back! Stay back! Where the hell am I? Steve! Steve, it's me! It's me! Huh? Peggy? Steve? Yes. Is it really you? Peggy, Without hesitation, she quickly threw her arms around him, removing his helmet, kissing him with the passion that had been long since lost for years on by. Other spectators and civilians couldn't believe what they were seeing before their very eyes in this moment. Bucky, Howard, they all followed behind Peggy as they followed into a group hug, an old friend that they hadn't seen in years. There was plenty of confusion, but also high optimism. Fury would approach, sticking out a hand and helping everyone up. Well, this is certainly a surprise. Not every day a living legend joins the modern era. You are? Agent Fury, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I guess it's not 1945, huh? No, I think we passed that date a while ago. There's a lot that you've missed out on. A lot more that you'll need to be getting up to speed on. Steve, I've missed you so much. Where did you go? It's a long story. I saw so much. So much. How long have you been gone? Bucky would ask. It's been over 1,000 years. He told me it would take a while to get home, but he kept his word. Tell us everything. It's a long story. Peggy would smile as she took his hand. We have all the time in the world. This concludes What If Season 1, Episode 5. What if Steve Rogers was the Black Knight? As always, if you enjoyed today's episode and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. As a side note, I haven't decided yet if Season 1 is going to be 8 or 9 episodes. So next week, we could be going all the way to Episode 8, or we could be going all the way to Episode 9. But I can confirm that next week, we will be wrapping up Season 1 of PowerCore's What If. So stay tuned for that as we reach the conclusion of Season 1 and our stories in the personalized world of PowerCore's What If Marvel. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.